Buying a new phone is always confusing because there are a lot of options and opinions. But in this video, I'm going to give you some tips that help you to choose the perfect phone that suits your need. And watch this video till the end because it might help you save some money from your pocket. And if you don't know me yet, well, I'm the host Arnav and you are watching Tech Arena, so let's get started. Alright, so the first and foremost tip that can help you buy the perfect phone that suits your need is to fix a tight budget. Now, before talking about budget, there are a few people who don't have any budget constraints, and for them, there are only two options, either to buy an Android phone or to buy an iPhone. And if they choose to buy an iPhone, well, the options are even narrowed down. Now, the common problem while choosing to buy an iPhone is, should you buy an iPhone 13 or should you go with an iPhone 14? So for the people who are confused between buying an iPhone 13 and 14, well, I would suggest them to buy an iPhone 13 and spend that extra money in buying some accessories like the Apple Watch or the Apple AirPods, because there's not a lot of difference if you see in terms of specs between the iPhone 13 and 14. Yes, the iPhone 14 has satellite connectivity, which I assume you are never going to use. And the second thing, it has 4K 30fps cinematic mode, which if it's important for you, then spend the extra few bucks. If you see the chipset, if you see the cameras, of course the iPhone 14 has a newer 12 megapixel sensor, but it's not going to be so different if you compare with the previous iPhone 13. And on top of that, the chipsets are same. Of course, the iPhone 14 has an extra GPU that you can find on the 13 Pro and Pro Max variants, but I don't think you will notice a lot of performance change from the iPhone 13 to the iPhone 14. So I've been suggesting people to buy the iPhone 13 instead and spend the extra money that they have on things like buying an AirPod or buying an Apple Watch, which is better. But if you're going to buy an Android phone, then that's where the problem comes, because there's a lot of options to choose from. Now, setting a budget is very important because these days, even if we set a budget, we might tend to spend extra few bucks to buy a better phone. So say for instance, if you have a budget of rupees 30,000 and you have two options to choose, the Nothing Phone 1 and the Pixel 6a. Now suddenly there's a new phone that comes in with better features but costs 2 or 3,000 rupees more. You might tend to buy that new phone instead of buying the old options that you have. And the reason being, you're getting some new extra features which I assume you will never use in most cases. So setting a tight budget is very important when you go to buy a new phone. It will help you from narrowing down a lot of options, and secondly, it can also help you to save some extra money that you might spend unnecessarily in buying what you call better for value phones. That's 2 or 3,000 rupees more. Yes, I do want to set a budget, but how? Well, that's when the next tip will help you. It's all about analyzing your current phone usage. Now, yes, if you're deciding to buy a new phone, always think, why do you want a new phone? And even if you buy a new phone, what you're going to do with that new phone? And you can answer all these questions by analyzing your current phone usage. In my case, when I was using the OnePlus Nord, I needed a phone that has good cameras, that is really smart, like for example, that has a lot of AI capabilities, and of course, stock Android experience is always that I wanted to have. And that's when a few options came in, like for example, Motorola, Pixel, and from that, I chose Pixel over Motorola because I thought that consistent software updates will only be done by Google. So this is how you analyze your usage pattern. For certain people, performance might be a go-to thing. For certain people, camera might be a go-to thing. And in my case, it was camera, and I had a few options like Galaxy S22 Ultra, I had Vivo X80, I had the Pixel, I had the Motorola. So analyzing your phone's usage is very important to buy a new phone or to narrow down the other options, and also to fix a budget, because depending upon your use case scenario, you can fix a budget that can fulfill most of your use cases. So that is why I said tip number 2 will help you to set a tight budget so that you can save that extra 2 or 3,000 which you will spend unnecessarily. Instead, you can invest that to buy some accessories or even a decent pair of TWS is what I would say. Now, the third tip is kind of relevant to places like India where network switch is happening, as I would like to call it. What I meant by network switch, well, we are in the verge of switching from 4G network to 5G network. And while network switching is happening, this is the time where a lot of brands try to brainwash you with the name of new network, that is, in our case, 5G. Now, if you see the under 25k price segment, most of the phones will have 5G as a feature or as a tag in the phone's model name. For example, OnePlus Nord 2T 5G or Realme 9 Pro Plus 5G. So brands are using this 5G as a tag to pull in customers to buy their phone. If you see practically, there's no difference between speeds when you compare 4G and 5G. So always, while deciding to buy a 5G phone, think whether you need it or not, because 5G is not there everywhere. And second thing, if you have Wi-Fi at your home, then I think you won't even require 5G. And again, there's a huge misconception among the people that is, you should buy a 5G phone in 2022, you should not buy a 4G phone. 4G will be relevant for the next 4 or 5 years. It's not going to go away when 5G comes. So buying a 4G phone is not at all a problem, especially in conditions where the 4G phone will have better features than the 5G. If you're higher on budget, then 5G will be a default thing that's going to come in your phone. But if you're very tight on budget, let's say under 25,000, there's going to be a lot of 4G options and 5G options. Now in that scenario, if that 4G phone is offering you better performance and better software updates, then I would prefer buying that one instead of buying a phone just because it's 5G. Tip number 4 is to buy a phone with good software support. And the reason for that to be important is because it helps your phone stay relevant in the long run. So there are brands like Samsung and Google that push out regular updates to fix some problems in the phone and also to give you new features for the long run. And there are also brands like Xiaomi that never updates their budget phones. So whenever you're trying to buy a new phone, try to buy a phone from a brand that provides you good updates so that your phone will be good in the long run, because you're not going to buy a phone every year. So for people who are looking to use a phone for longer time, like for example 2 or 3 years, always make sure to buy a phone from a brand that gives you good software support. Like for example, Google, Samsung, these are some brands that give you good software updates. So yes, buying a phone with good software support is very important as it ensures good performance in the long run. The last and final tip is also very important, because if you consider to buy a phone, then it can ensure that if some problem comes in the future, then you can easily get it fixed. I'm talking about good after sales support. Now there are a few phones that is really good for the money that you spend, like for example Pixel phones and Nothing phone. But the problem with those phones is the lack of after sales support. There are a few places where you won't find the service centers for phones like Nothing or Pixel or for example Techno. While you decide to buy a phone, check whether the after sales support of that particular brand is good or not. Because if you see Google, they only have one service center in one city, that is Bombay. And if something happens to your phone, then you have to send your phone all the way from Chennai to Bombay in North India. And that's even the case with Nothing phone. Yes, they do have service centers in all the metro cities. But if you live in some interior spaces, then there are chances that you might need to travel from your location to that metro city to fix your phone. So always buy a phone that has good after sales support. In this way, you can use your phone without having any fear if you end up buying that particular phone. And this also helps to narrow down the options even more to just 1 or 2 options, as I said. So let me sum up the video real quick. First one is to fix a budget. Budget is really important, and to fix a budget, you need to analyze your current phone usage. That will narrow down the options from 5 or 10 to just 3 or 4. The third one is to choose between 4G or 5G. It is very important these days because we are in a network switching stage. We're switching from 4G to 5G. So you can avoid buying 5G just because it's 5G also. The fourth one is to buy a phone with good software support. Software support is very important for the long run performance of any phone. And the last and final tip is to buy a phone with good after sales support. Because if you end up buying that phone, you should not have any problem in repairing that phone if there's a problem that comes to that phone. So these are the 5 tips that you need to consider before buying a phone so that you can end up buying the perfect phone that suits your need. So if you feel this video is very useful, then drop a like to this video and share this video with all of your friends who are going to buy a new phone. And apart from that, also consider to subscribe to our channel because it's very important, as subscribing will help me motivate to create better content for you guys. And also don't forget to press the bell icon to get all the notifications for our upcoming videos. So I hope with these tips, you buy a perfect phone that suits your need. Anyways, this is me, Arnav, signing off. Talk to you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.